Hello everyone, this is day 50 of Polity Daily Drill. Let's begin. First question. Consider the following statements regarding the concept of a republic. In a republic, the head of state is an elected or nominated individual, not a hereditary monarch. So yes, of course, in a republic, the head of state has to be typically elected, sometimes directly, sometimes indirectly, or nominated. The idea is that it is different from monarchy in the sense that in a monarchy, the head of state is a hereditary post. So one is correct. Number two, the concept of a republic is inherently linked to democratic principles, ensuring the participation of citizens in governance. Yes, of course. How? Because citizens elect their representatives again, directly or indirectly. Like in India, the citizens choose the legislators, and these legislators choose the president. So it's an indirect election, but yet an election. So 2 is also correct. Number 3. The term republic is explicitly mentioned in the preamble of the Indian Constitution. Yes, of course. India is a sovereign, socialist, right? Secular, democratic republic. So yes, this is also correct. And number 4, all republics operate under a written constitution. Now, see, this is not correct. Not all republics operate under a written constitution, right? Now, see, there are certain republics which might also have an uncodified or a partially codified constitution. So, this is incorrect. In fact, there are some monarchies also which, despite being, how do we put it, a constitutional monarchy as we call it, even though you can take the example of UK, where we largely see that the constitution is said to be unwritten. The only difference is that it is not compiled into one source, it's scattered into various resources, but yet they pride themselves in calling themselves in a constitutional monarchy. Anyway, so 4 is wrong. All republics operate under a written constitution is wrong. How many statements are correct? C. Only 3 statements are correct. Moving on to the next question. Judicial review is the power of the judiciary to examine the constitutionality of legislative enactments and executive orders. In this regard, consider the following statements. So we already have a very nice definition of judicial review. Now, number 1, the power of judicial review is explicitly mentioned in the Constitution of India, whereas in USA it was established through a Supreme Court ruling. See, as far as USA is concerned, absolutely correct. Judicial review in USA was established through the Supreme Court ruling in what is known as the Marbury versus Madison case of 1803. So yes, it is not explicitly mentioned, but the point is judicial review as a term clearly mentioned in the Indian Constitution? Of course not. It has been again held that by the Supreme Court of India that judicial review is a part of basic structure, Minerva Mills case, but not mentioned clearly anywhere. So 1 is wrong. Number 2, in India, judicial review does not extend to examining the validity of constitutional amendments. Yes or no? It does. In fact, after the Keshwanand Bharti judgment, we know very well that judiciary can examine everything under the sun, including constitutional amendments, and can also strike down such modifications. A very good example, forgetting even 1970s, a very good example is the NJAC, the 99th Amendment Act of the year 2014, which was struck down in the what we know now as the 4th judge's case, the Supreme Court Advocates on Record case 2015. So in our country, judicial review extends to everything, including examining the constitutional amendments and their validity. So both are wrong. Which statement is incorrect? C. Both 1 and 2. Let's move on to question number 3. In which of the following cases was the Speaker's decision on disqualification of legislators under the anti-defection law made subject to judicial review? So originally, under the 10th schedule, which is the anti-defection law, the Speaker's or the presiding officer's decision was to be final. But since it violated the very basic idea of judicial review, hence Supreme Court struck down one small portion of the 10th schedule, stating that no, the Speaker could also be biased and hence the decision should be allowed to be reviewed by the courts, the superior courts. And that judgment was the Quijotto-Holohan case of 1992. Other cases are primarily ones like, say, the Indira Sahni case. This was the one which related to what? Or the Mandal case related to the reservation for the other backward classes in the country up to 27%. S.R. Bommai, the very famous case involving the imposition of President's rule or the wrongful imposition of President's rule. And Iyer Coelho case is the one of 2007 where the Supreme Court said that even if you place a law under the 9th schedule, it will not have judicial immunity if it violates basic structure. So all the other 3 cases relate to different matters, but still all of these cases are extremely important. Now question 4. Consider the following provisions of the Indian Constitution and the countries from which they are inspired. Fundamental rights, USA. Procedure to amend the Constitution, South Africa. Joint sittings in the Parliament, UK. Suspension of fundamental rights during emergency, Australia. So how many pairs are correctly matched? Of course, fundamental rights inspired by the Bill of Rights from USA. Procedure to amend the Constitution, yes, South Africa, of course, the older Constitution, not the new one. Number 3, joint sittings in the Parliament. This has been borrowed from Australia, not UK. And number 4, suspension of fundamental rights during emergency. This has been borrowed from the Constitution of the Weimar Republic of Germany. Right? So, first 2 are correct, last 2 are wrong. How many pairs are correctly matched? B. Only 2 pairs are correctly matched. And the last question for today. Consider the following statements regarding the presidential and the parliamentary forms of government. In a presidential form of government, the executive is separate from the legislature, whereas in a parliamentary form of government, the executive is a part of legislature. Is it correct? Yes, of course. That's the real criteria of difference. In a parliamentary form, the executive, meaning the ministers, they are also MPs, MLAs, MLCs, right? But in the presidential form of government, the president cannot be a part of the what? Congress. I mean, in USA, for example, they call the parliament as a Congress. So the US president, for example, where we follow the presidential form of government, there you will find that the president should not be a member of the Congress. Same goes for all the ministers who are called secretaries there. So 1 is correct. Number 2, in a parliamentary form of government, the head of state and the head of government are the same individual. Really? Of course not. Head of state is the president. Head of government is the prime minister. For example, in India, I mean, the names, the nomenclature can be different. You can call them chancellors, etc. But the point is that the head of state and the head of government are different individuals, dual executive. Whereas in a presidential form of government, these roles are separate. It's the exact opposite. In a parliamentary, they are separate. In a presidential form, they are the same individual. 2 is wrong. Number 3, in a presidential form of government, the president can be removed from office by the legislature through a process similar to a vote of no confidence. Of course not. In a presidential form of government, the president cannot be removed by a vote of no confidence. Instead, the president can only be removed through a formal process, which you can call as an impeachment process. You have to initiate a proper procedure to remove. Impeachment plus removal. Like say in USA, impeachment takes place in the lower house or the House of Representatives, which we call in our country House of People, or in UK House of Commons, the lower house. And the removal takes place in the upper house, which we call as Rajya Sabha, they call it Senate. Okay, so 3 is wrong. Which of the statements are incorrect? So 2 and 3 are incorrect. Right answer is C. So this is all for today. Let's meet tomorrow. Till then, that is all for me. Jai Hind.